Welcome to Crushed Husband. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin.
The message came on a Tuesday morning, just as I was pouring my second cup of coffee. I almost didn't check it. Cassie usually texted, and anything truly important came over the phone. But there it was. Subject line, Re-Exhibition Update. I opened it without thinking much, already smiling to myself. Maybe she was confirming my flight information. Maybe she'd found the perfect hotel near the gallery in Paris. She knew I didn't need anything fancy. I just wanted to be there, to see it with my own eyes. Her dream coming to life. Our dream, in a way. But then I read the words, and read them again. Hey Mom! Quick heads up, we're making a few changes for the show. Due to limited space and some last-minute curatorial decisions, we're tightening the guest list a little. Unfortunately, that means you won't be able to attend in person. But we'll be live streaming the whole thing. It's basically the same as being there. LOL. Can't wait for you to see it. I just stared at the screen, the steam rising from my coffee going completely unnoticed. My heart didn't exactly drop. It just stopped, like it didn't know how to keep going. I read the line again. It's basically the same as being there. Lol. I wasn't even sure what hurt more, the casual tone or the fact that she didn't seem to see anything wrong with what she was saying. 2 months ago, I'd wired her $30,000 so she could book the venue and hire a French assistant. Another $50,000 was scheduled to transfer next week, part of the overall support I'd promised. She called me crying when she got the gallery's acceptance letter. Mom, this is it. Everything we've worked for. And now, apparently, we didn't include me. I didn't scream or slam anything. I just sat there at the table, staring out the window as if it might explain something I had missed. Then I typed a reply. 4 words. No more, no less. Sure, enjoy your show. I hit send and closed the laptop. The dog whined at my feet, sensing the quiet shift in the air. I reached down and scratched behind her ears, slow and steady. That was the moment. The exact second I knew, this wasn't just about one email or one show. This was what it all amounted to. Decades of long shifts, late nights, skipped vacations. Christmases I spent in hospital scrubs so the kids could unwrap presents under the tree. All of it. And somehow, my reward was a link to a live stream. No seat at the table, no presents on the wall. Just a screen. She didn't even ask if I was okay with it. It was already decided. Like I was just another line item she could cut from the budget. I should have cried, but I didn't. I just stood up, put the coffee in the microwave, and pressed reheat. I had things to do that day, groceries to pick up, a walk to take before the sun got too high. It's funny. People always say motherhood is about sacrifice. But what they never say is what happens when the sacrificing's done and you look up and realize no one noticed. No one even remembers. The gravel crunched under my sneakers as I walked the usual loop through the neighborhood, past the old birch tree where the Johnsons used to hang Christmas lights, past the little red house with the broken fence someone spray-painted years ago and no one ever fixed. Same loop, same air, same quiet hum of a town that rarely changed. The dog tugged at the leash ahead of me, nose to the ground, tail high. She didn't care that everything had shifted. She just wanted to sniff the world. I tried to do the same, tried to focus on the breeze, on the rising sun casting gold across the cracked sidewalk, but it didn't work. My thoughts kept tugging me backward, the way memories do when you're not asking for them. I remembered Cassie at 8 years old, sitting cross-legged on the kitchen floor, dipping Q-tips into watercolors and dragging them across printer paper. She used to call them her gallery shows, taping them up across the walls and pretending to sell them to stuffed animals. I'm gonna be famous, Mom, she told me once, holding up a painting of a purple tree, but not for money, just for the feeling. I had smiled and said, then I hope you're the richest person alive. Back then, I worked double shifts at the hospital just to keep the lights on and make sure she had decent paints. I remember pawning my engagement ring the summer she turned 12 so I could send her to that sleepaway art camp in Maine. She cried the night before she left, afraid to be away from home. I sat beside her on the edge of her bed and promised, no matter where you go, I'll be right here cheering you on. I was always cheering. From the sidelines, the audience, the edges. My breath caught in my throat as I walked past the Reynolds mailbox, its metal rusting from the inside. I thought about Cassie's college years, the surprise acceptance letter to that art school in Chicago. I emptied my retirement fund for that tuition, told myself I'd make up the difference somehow. It's only money, I said. This is her future. The dog barked once, yanking me back to the present. I glanced down and saw her tail wagging at a squirrel already halfway up a tree. I gave a half-hearted chuckle and kept walking. The truth was, Cassie hadn't just left me out of a guest list. She'd left me out of the story. Her story. As if all those years of holding her hand through meltdowns and breakups, mailing her granola bars during finals week, or sending her rent money just until that check comes in. As if none of it counted. It wasn't just Cassie either. Evan flashed in my mind next. My son, 3 years older, always chasing schemes. Startups, vending machines, dog grooming apps. Things that fizzled out just as fast as they began. I wrote him a check for $20,000 the week he swore his fitness tracking bracelet would revolutionize walking. He sent me a text a month later. Didn't work out. Can I borrow more? I never told him no. Not once. Now I realize maybe I should have. I thought giving was love. That if I just gave enough time, money, attention, they'd know. They'd feel it. They'd carry it with them like a shield. But now I wonder if all I gave just became expectation. If I didn't raise children, I raised dependence. Not on my money, but on my silence. My willingness to be invisible. I turned left down Birch Hollow Road. A soft wind cut through the trees. The kind that makes the leaves sound like they're whispering to each other. For the first time in a long time, I didn't want to go home. Home meant sitting with that email. That LOL. Home meant realizing I had worked myself to the bone for 2 people who saw me as a vault, not a mother. Useful, until I wasn't. A neighbor jogged past me and offered a cheerful wave. I lifted a hand out of habit, but I didn't smile. The dog sat suddenly, her leash pulling taut. I looked down. She was staring at nothing in particular. Just sitting, tail still, ears up, like she was waiting for me to do something, to move, to decide. I exhaled, long and low. Cassie's show would go on, with wine and lights and people wearing black turtlenecks saying things like compelling and evocative. I'd watch from my couch, I guessed, if I watched at all. Maybe I'd just bake something instead, something simple and warm and mine. Because maybe that's what I needed now. Not to be invited, not to be thanked, just to see things clearly. I wasn't the guest, I wasn't the mother, not in the way they needed anymore. I was a chapter they'd already closed, but I was still here. Still walking, still breathing, and that had to count for something. The bell above the door at Green Hill Credit Union gave its usual cheerful ding as I stepped inside. The place smelled faintly like lemon cleaner and paper. A couple of people waited in line for the tellers, but I wasn't here for that. I nodded at the woman behind the front desk and said, "I'm here to see Tessa." She smiled politely. "One moment, Ms. Whitaker. I'll let her know." I stood off to the side, my hands folded, trying not to let them shake. I wasn't nervous exactly, just settled. The way you feel after a long storm, when the wind finally dies down and all that's left is cleanup. Tessa appeared a few minutes later, stepping out from her glass-walled office. Her dark hair was pinned up, glasses perched at the edge of her nose. We'd known each other for years. She used to handle all the loan paperwork when I refinanced the house after Jim died. "Nora," she said, smiling warmly. "Come on in." I followed her inside, taking the same seat I always did across from her desk. There was a little wooden duck sitting by her monitor, same one from a decade ago. "What can I do for you today?" she asked, typing something into her computer. "I need to cancel a scheduled wire transfer," I said. My voice was steady. Tessa paused. "Okay, let's pull it up. Is it the one for $50,000 to the gallery in Paris?" "That's the one." She blinked and sat back slightly. "That's due to go out in 6 days, right? Everything okay?" I nodded. "The circumstances have changed." She looked at me for a second, her fingers still on the keys. "You want to cancel it completely?" "Yes." "All right," she started clicking through screens. "Let me just double-check the authorization." I sat quietly while she worked. The air in the room was still, like it was waiting to see if I'd change my mind. I didn't. When she looked up again, she hesitated. "Nora, I don't mean to pry, but this is a significant amount of money. I remember you said it was for your daughter's show? That's what it was for, I said simply. She didn't press, just gave a soft nod. All right, the wire transfer has been canceled. The funds are still in your high-yield savings. Good, I said. Thank you. She reached across the desk and placed her hand lightly over mine. If you ever want to talk outside of money stuff, I'm here. I gave her a small smile. I appreciate that. The sun hit the glass behind her desk at just the right angle, casting a stripe of light across the floor. It reminded me of when I used to sit in the hospital lounge between shifts, watching the sunrise after a double. The world kept turning, whether or not I was ready. I left the bank a few minutes later, blinking into the bright Vermont sky. It was too early for fall, but there was something crisp in the air. Like change had decided to come early. When I got home, the silence felt different. Not heavy, just honest. My phone was buzzing before I even took off my shoes. Cassie, Mom, what's going on with the transfer? The gallery says it didn't go through. They're freaking out. Please tell me it's just a delay. Evan, hey, I just got off the phone with Cass. She said something's up with the money. Are you okay? What's going on? Then more texts, calls, missed voicemails. One from Evan with that old frantic tone I hadn't heard since his last venture collapsed. I didn't answer any of them. I put the phone on silent and set it in the drawer beside my chair. Then I walked into the kitchen and pulled out a bottle of wine I'd been saving for something special. It was dusty. I hadn't touched it since the Christmas gym was still alive. I poured a glass and sat on the back porch, letting the stem of the glass rest between my fingers. The wine was dry, tart, exactly how I liked it. There was no toast, no celebration, just me. The sky above the woods behind my house was starting to dim, streaked with soft blues and gold. I sipped slowly and watched the light shift. They'd call again, probably tonight, maybe tomorrow, but I had said everything I needed to say when I clicked cancel on that transfer. Cassie disinvited me. That was her decision. This was mine, and it felt peaceful, like coming up for air after being underwater so long, you forgot what breathing felt like. Let them figure it out. Let them panic. I'd spent enough years holding the safety net. Now they could learn what the ground felt like. It was close to 8 o'clock when I heard the knock on the front door. Firm, not frantic, but too impatient to be polite. I didn't need to look through the window. I already knew. Evan. I opened the door, and there he was, standing on the porch with that stiff, anxious look he always wore when something had gone wrong. His jaw was clenched. His shirt was wrinkled. He hadn't even bothered with a jacket, just stood there like he had every right to barge in and demand answers. Hey, he said. No hello, no hug. Just that single word, tense like a pulled wire. I stepped aside. Come in. He walked past me, straight into the living room, like he owned the place. Like he always did. Cassie called me, he started before I could say anything. She said the wire transfer didn't go through, that the gallery might cancel her show if they don't get the rest of the money in the next 48 hours. I nodded, slowly. That's what I heard too. He blinked at me. So what happened? I sat down in the armchair and crossed one leg over the other. I canceled the transfer. He looked like I'd slapped him. What? Why? I didn't answer right away. I let the question sit between us, heavy and quiet. Then I said, because I was uninvited, from the show, from her life, really. Evan stared at me. You're kidding. I raised an eyebrow. She told me in an email that due to limited space and curatorial preferences, I wouldn't be attending in person, but not to worry, I could watch the live stream. I waited, but Evan didn't say anything. He just shook his head like I was missing the point. So you're punishing her? You're really gonna let her career fall apart over some dumb email? I kept my voice calm. This isn't punishment, it's a boundary. He scoffed. Come on, Mom. It's not that deep. You're taking this way too personally. Am I asked. I sent her $30,000. I was ready to send 50 more. I wasn't invited. Not even a phone call. Not even a thank you. Just a link to a live stream and a LOL. And now I'm being dramatic? Evan threw his arms up. She didn't mean it that way. She's just under pressure. This show means everything to her. I looked him in the eye. And what do I mean to her? That shut him up, just for a second. He paced, running a hand through his hair like he couldn't believe he was here having this conversation. Look, I get that you're hurt, But this show is a huge opportunity. You're blowing it all up over pride. I stood up, slowly. No, Evan, I've blown too much of my life up over guilt, over loyalty, over trying to keep everything together so you and Cassie could chase whatever you wanted without ever looking back. But not anymore. His mouth opened, ready to argue, but I kept going. You know what Cassie said in that email? She said watching the live stream would be basically the same as being there. Do you know how many times I watched your childhoods through glass? Through windows from the nurse's station or break room TV sets. Birthdays, concerts, graduations. I missed a lot. But I never missed the chance to show up when you needed something. Especially when it cost me. Evan's expression hardened. So now you're going to throw that in our faces? Guilt trip us because you paid for stuff? I shook my head. I'm finally telling the truth. And if the truth feels like a guilt trip, maybe that says more about you than it does about me. He took a step back, like he'd just been burned. You know, he said slowly, bitterly. Cassie was right. You're making this about yourself. You can't just cut us off because you didn't get your way. I stared at him, feeling something solid rise in my chest. Something unfamiliar, but good. I didn't get my way, I repeated. What I wanted was to be there, to see her succeed, to share that moment. Instead, I got a cold email and a digital seat in the back row. He didn't answer. I walked to the door and opened it. If this show is as important as you say, then you and Cassie can figure out another way to fund it. My support was a gift, not a guarantee. Evan didn't move. I'm your son, he said quietly, like that still carried weight. And I'm your mother, I replied. Not your investor, not your fallback plan, just your mother. We stood there for a long moment. He looked down, then back at me, and for a second I thought I saw something shift. But it passed. He stepped out onto the porch. You'll regret this, he said, not like a threat, more like a promise to himself. I didn't flinch. Maybe, but not tonight. I closed the door behind him, slow and quiet, and for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel bad. I felt free. The next morning, I found the email waiting in my inbox before I even had a chance to sit down with my coffee. Subject line, urgent, from Cassie. I stared at it for a moment. The word urgent made me laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was so expected. After years of being the one who showed up for emergencies, who fixed things without being asked, urgent had become the unofficial family greeting. I clicked it open. Mom, I don't know what's going on. The gallery is threatening to back out if the rest of the funding doesn't come through by Friday. Sponsors are getting nervous, and I don't have time to smooth everything over while planning. I'm sorry you felt hurt about the guest list, but that wasn't the point of any of this. I thought you wanted me to succeed. I need this show to happen. If you can just get the transfer through, I'll talk to the curators and see if there's still a way to include you. Maybe a small spot during setup, or a VIP stream link or something. I know it's not ideal, but it's better than letting everything fall apart, right? Please, Mom. Cassie. I read it twice, maybe 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and sat back. The morning light filtered through the window in soft ribbons. The house quiet except for the gentle click of the dog's nails on the hardwood floor. That phrase stuck out. If you can just get the transfer through. Like this was a transaction. Like my presence could be bargained for. A small spot during setup. A VIP stream link. Not because she wanted me there, not because she missed me, but because the money had dried up and now I had leverage. I poured myself a cup of coffee and carried it out to the porch. The woods behind the house were a mix of green and gold now, the edges of autumn creeping in early. The air smelled like dry leaves and old bark. And for a second, I could almost forget that my daughter was using my love like a poker chip. The dog followed me out and curled up beside the rocking chair. I sipped slowly, watching a squirrel dart between the trees, and let the silence settle. They thought I'd cave, that I'd blink first. Evan hadn't texted since last night, and that told me everything I needed to know. Cassie had sent him in as the warning shot. And when that didn't work, she followed up with a Hail Mary, no apology. Just an offer to maybe include me if I played my part. It wasn't inclusion, it was manipulation. And it worked, didn't it? For years. It worked when Evan needed bailing out, when Cassie needed another tuition payment, when birthdays came and went without so much as a card, but they still remembered my routing number, not anymore. I reached down and rubbed the dog's ears, the warmth of her head grounding me in a way no one else had in a long time. A part of me still wanted to respond, to explain, to tell her what it meant to be a mother who never missed a payment, never asked for anything back, and still got erased from the frame. But I knew it wouldn't matter. She wasn't listening. Not really. To her, I was a vault that happened to walk and breathe and say, "I love you," at the right times. I took another sip of coffee. Then I stood up, walked back inside, and closed the laptop without replying. Instead, I grabbed the dog's leash. We walked deeper into the woods than usual that morning, past the trail we usually loop around, past the old stone wall that used to mark someone's farm boundary 100 years ago. The air was damp with dew, but peaceful, alive. Out there, I didn't feel small, or ignored, or like a line item in someone else's budget. I was just me, Nora Whitaker, retired nurse, widow, mother, woman who had learned, at long last, that real love doesn't come with conditions. The world had been loud lately, phones buzzing, voices rising, expectations layered like debts. But the forest didn't ask anything of me, and for the first time in a very long time, I didn't owe anyone a thing. I met David at the little cafe on Main Street, the one with the chipped mugs and mismatched chairs that served the best tuna melt in Vermont. We used to come here after long shifts at the hospital, back when we were both running on caffeine and stubbornness. Now, we were just two retired people trying to find our footing in lives no longer scheduled by pagers. He was already there when I walked in, sitting at a corner table with a book flipped upside down beside his coffee. He looked up and smiled when he saw me. "Nora," he said, standing just enough to hug me. "I was hoping you'd show." I smiled and sat down across from him. "I said Thursday at noon, didn't I?" "You did," he grinned. "But after your last text, I wasn't sure you were in the mood to talk to anyone." I took a deep breath and picked up the menu, even though I already knew what I'd order. I wasn't, but today I am. The waitress came by and we ordered. Coffee for me, black like always, and the special for both of us. Once she left, I looked out the window. The town was still the same. A truck rumbled by. Someone walked a golden retriever past the post office. Normal life kept happening. David leaned back and studied me for a moment. "You want to tell me what happened?" I didn't answer right away. I stirred my coffee even though there was nothing in it, then said, "Cassie uninvited me from her art show." He blinked. "What?" "Sent me an email," I continued, voice steady. "Said due to space issues and curatorial preferences, I wouldn't be attending in person, but I could watch the live stream." David winced. "Oof. And after everything you did to help her put that together," I nodded. 30,000 already sent. Another 50 that was about to go. I took a sip of coffee. "I canceled the transfer 2 days ago." He gave a slow, impressed whistle. "Good for you." That made me laugh, even though I didn't mean to. "Is it terrible that I feel good about it?" "Terrible number." He shook his head. "It sounds overdue." I looked at him, really looked. David had always been the quiet one at work, calm during emergencies, kind without needing a reason. We'd never been more than colleagues with shared lunches and work stories. But sitting across from him now, I felt something I hadn't in a while. Seen. Without expectation. Without cost. I didn't want to talk to anyone about it, I admitted. I felt embarrassed, like it was my fault. "Why?" "Because part of me knew," I said softly. I knew they didn't see me anymore, not as a person, just the support beam. You pull money from a source long enough, it stops being a person. It just becomes a resource. David leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "You're not a resource, Nora. You're a woman who spent her life loving her kids the best way she knew how. That doesn't make you stupid or soft. It makes you strong. But sometimes real love," he paused, like he was choosing the words carefully. "Sometimes it's saying no." I looked down at my hands. They were weathered, veined, strong in a way only time can make them. "You think it's too late to start saying no?" "Nope," he said. "I think it's exactly the right time." The waitress came by with our plates, and we ate mostly in silence. The tuna melt was still perfect, crispy on the outside, just enough mayo. Halfway through, I felt the tightness in my chest start to ease, like I had finally unclenched something I hadn't realized was balled up inside me. "I don't know what comes next," I said after a while. "They're furious. Cassie, Evan. They think I'm being petty. Let them, David said. You've earned the right to protect your peace. I smiled at that. Not a forced one, a real one. A quiet, surprised smile that came from somewhere deeper than my face. Thank you, I said. For what? For listening, for not trying to fix it, just hearing me. David sipped his coffee, his eyes kind. That's what friends are for. We stayed a while longer, talking about nothing and everything. The weather, a new bakery that just opened. How weird it was not having work to go to anymore. When I left the cafe, the sun had shifted higher in the sky. It was warm on my face, and I didn't rush to get back in the car. I stood outside for a minute, just breathing. For the first time, I wasn't carrying it alone. And that, I realized, was love too. The kind that didn't come with strings, or price tags, or silent expectations. Just a quiet lunch. And someone who saw me. It was nearly dusk when I saw her, Mia, sitting on my porch swing, hands clasped in her lap like she wasn't sure if she should be there. She stood up the second I stepped out with the recycling bin, her eyes wide and nervous, like a teenager again. Mia, I said, surprised. Everything okay? She gave a quick nod, then a pause. Hey, Nora. I hadn't seen her in years. She used to be a fixture in our house. Sleepovers, art projects, bike rides with Cassie. When the girls were 12, they begged me to let them stay up all night watching scary movies. I let them. The next morning, they were both curled up on the couch, snoring under the same blanket. Mouths open, popcorn everywhere. Now here she was, grown and nervous on my porch, shifting from one foot to the other. I should have called, she said. I wasn't sure if... No, it's fine. Come in or sit. Whatever you like. She sat back on the swing. I set the bin down and took the other side. The wood creaked slightly under our weight, the sound familiar and strange all at once. I don't want to overstep, Mia said after a moment. Cassie asked me to talk to you. I nodded slowly, unsurprised. Of course she did. She's unraveling, Mia said. The venue's not officially canceled yet, but the gallery's pulling back. Sponsors too. There's a lot of panic. And Mia paused. She's not handling it well. I looked out toward the trees lining the yard. The sun was bleeding into the horizon, casting the whole sky in peach and gold. The kind of sky that makes you feel like maybe the day meant something. Mia's voice softened. She asked me to come see if there's anything she can do. If there's a way to fix it. To change your mind. I let the silence stretch, long and clean. The wind rustled through the maple leaves overhead. I loved having you girls around, I said finally. You were good for each other. Mia nodded. She talks about those days a lot. She was different then, I said. Softer, realer. She used to help me fold laundry and ask questions about everything. Why the sky turned pink, what stitches looked like, whether whales ever got lonely. Mia smiled faintly. She still asks things like that, just not out loud. I turned to face her. You know, I always thought the hardest part of motherhood was the beginning. No sleep, no money, constant worry. But it's not. The hardest part is realizing your kids see you less and less as a person. That they remember the giving but not the giver. Mia swallowed. Cassie remembers, Nora. I know she does. She's scared, and she's proud, and she didn't invite me, I said, gently but firmly. She spent months planning that show and never once made space for me in the room. And now that the money's gone, suddenly I matter again. Mia didn't argue. She just looked at her hands. I told her it was wrong, she said quietly. I told her when she sent that email, she was going to regret it. She will, I said. But that's hers to carry. She's desperate, Mia whispered, and she doesn't know how to say she's sorry. I looked up at the sky again, watching a single bird glide across it like it had nowhere it needed to be. She doesn't need to say she's sorry, I said. She needs to learn that not everything is fixable with a text or a favor. Some things need to stay broken long enough to mean something. Mia looked over, eyes glossy. She really did want to impress you, you know. I gave a small smile. Then maybe she should have saved me a seat. We sat there for a while after that. The swing creaking softly, the yard bathed in fading light. Finally, Mia stood. She hesitated for a moment, then leaned in and hugged me. Not out of obligation, but something warmer than that. Thanks for talking to me, she said. Thanks for coming, I replied. She walked down the porch steps, her heels clicking on the concrete. Before she reached the sidewalk, I said, "Tell Cassie something for me." Mia turned. "Tell her that when people only see you after you disappear, it's time to stay gone." Mia gave a small nod. She didn't ask me to reconsider. She didn't say, "Please." She just turned and walked into the evening, her silhouette shrinking against the falling dark. I sat there on the porch for a long time after she left, the swing still gently moving, the wind cooler now. And for the first time, I wasn't waiting for a message, or an apology, or a fix. I wasn't waiting for anything at all. 3 weeks later, the gallery officially pulled out. I didn't find out from Cassie. I found out from a quiet post buried in her Instagram feed. Just a close-up photo of one of her paintings propped against a white wall. Captioned, "Not everything goes as planned, but the art still lives. Pop-up coming soon. Details soon." No mention of Paris. No glittering launch. No live stream. I stared at the post for a minute, then scrolled past it. That was it. No fanfare. No apology. Just a soft pivot away from what could have been. She ended up doing a small show in a warehouse in Brooklyn. One night only. I wasn't invited. Not that I needed to be. The photos told the story well enough. String lights, folding chairs, plastic cups of wine. Maybe a dozen people milling around looking politely interested. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel bitter. I felt done. 2 days after the pop-up, Cassie sent me an email. A long one. It started with, "I guess you've heard by now." Then came the familiar rhythm of conflicted explanations. Regret? Yes. But laced with justification. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I could handle it. I just needed things to go a certain way. You have to understand how much pressure I was under." She wrote about sponsors who bailed, curators who panicked, logistics that unraveled the moment the funding stopped. She said she wished I had trusted her process, that she never meant for this to come between us. At the very end, one sentence stood out. "I know I messed up, but I still need you." I sat with that for a long time, longer than I should have. Then I hovered my mouse over the archive button. Click, gone, not deleted. Just filed away with all the other things I didn't owe an answer to. The next morning, I went hiking. There's a trail just outside of town that I'd always meant to try, but never had the time. Not between hospital shifts, soccer practice, bill payments, late-night phone calls. Now I had time. More than enough. The woods were quiet, and the ground beneath my boots was soft with damp pine needles. I hiked for 2 hours, breathing deeper than I had in years. Later that week, I signed up for a ceramics class at the community center. On Thursday evenings, I now sit in a room full of retired teachers, curious college students, and the occasional tired mom trying to remember what her hands were good at. I'm not great at it, not yet, but I like the way the clay fights back, how it demands presence. No one there knows my history. No one cares what I used to give. Last Saturday, I had dinner with David and 2 friends from the hospital days. We talked about movies, about recipes, about someone's new granddaughter. Not once did anyone mention Cassie. Not once did I feel like I was needed for something I hadn't signed up for. When I got home that night, the porch light cast a warm glow over the swing. I sat there, dog at my feet, tea in hand, and I thought, this is what it feels like to live without owing, without being on call, without waiting for a thank you that never comes. I still love my children. That hasn't changed. But I've made a new rule for myself, one I wrote down in the inside cover of a notebook I keep in the kitchen drawer. If my worth is conditional, my effort is optional. I don't know if Cassie will ever come around, if Evan will ever understand. That's not my job anymore. My job is me now. The rest will have to figure itself out. And if it doesn't, I'll still be here, hiking, making lopsided bowls, laughing with friends who look at me, not what I've given. And for the first time in my life, that's enough.